What's up everyone, and welcome to another Rust electrical tutorial. I'm Austin, and today I'm going to be talking about how to use SAM sites and different ways that you can wire them up. So we're going to go ahead started with just the basics here. SAM sites cannot be crafted. You have to purchase them for 500 scrap at Outpost. If you have TC authorization, they can be picked up with a hammer after being placed. They can be placed on both foundations and ceiling tiles. They require 25 rust watts to operate, 26 or more if you want to use the pass-through or the reference outputs, which I'll talk about here in a moment. The ammunition is both purchasable and craftable, so you can make them in your base if you choose to. They ignore TC authorization when targeting, so you cannot authorize on a SAM site. They will target any and all aircraft. They also will target MLRS rockets, and I think you need 3 seems to be the magic number to defend your base against an MLRS attack. They have a defender mode, which is like a peacekeeping mode on PC. If you hold E, you can put them into defender mode, and that just makes them only target the MLRS rockets and ignore aircraft if you choose to do that. And then they have 4 outputs. They've got a no ammo, low ammo, has target, and they have a pass-through. And so, again, 25 rust watts to power it, 26 if you want to use any or all 3 of these. Interestingly, if you do send 26, it will also pass that 26 through the pass-through, so you can actually use that for a light to indicate when it's on if you want, and you can use these at the same time. So I have these hooked up just up here to this up here, so you can see what's active. Right now it has no ammunition. You can load these with missiles simply by opening it up with E. You don't have to turn it off first. 10 missiles is the threshold, so if I put 10 in there, the no ammo will turn off. If I remove 1, so 9 or below, the low ammo will turn on at 9 or below, and then it has target, obviously will send out a signal if it targets an aircraft. So I can show you this by, I've got a range thing here where if I open this down here, you'll see a door opens down there. That is the limit to their range, and it is 34 square foundations inclusive. So this one is targeting, is mounted in the middle of this foundation, and then way down here, 34 is this last metal one here. It's actually detecting this wheel right here. So if I push this back onto the 35th foundation, it will not target it. So, and I have it raised. If this were at ground level, they wouldn't have targeted it. It has to be at their eye level in order for them to detect something. So interestingly enough, you'll note that the aircraft is not airborne, and so they will target any aircraft regardless of whether it's in flight or not, but they can be blocked. So that's something to keep in mind if you're trying to block it. So as soon as I close that, they won't. But if I were to load a single round into this one here and open this, it will target that minicopter and fire around at it. You can see that it has target came on and it shot around down at it. Same thing with this. Another important thing is that they can, depending on how you install them, if you're not careful, they can damage your own base. So you want to think about that when you're installing these. If I put one in here and open this back up, it's going to fire it regardless and probably hit that sign right in front of it, I'm guessing. So as soon as it targets it, it's going to, there it goes, and it hit the sign. So just something to keep in mind, that when you're building these things, it's not good to, if you have one in the center of your base somewhere that's low enough, it could spin around, hit your own base. So just be cautious, maybe have them directional by building walls behind them, that sort of thing. So real quick, we're also going to cover, while we're over here, we're going to look at the simplest way to hook these up. I have this hooked up on a smart switch, so you could use your Rust Plus to turn this on and off. I've just got 27 arriving here so that I have 26 passing, so I can have that pass through. That's how I'm using this light to show that it's on or off. That's the easiest way. So because again, they target all aircraft, so if you have these on your base and you go to take off and go somewhere, assuming that you are piloting stuff, you're gonna need to turn them off in order to fly in and out of your base. So the simplest way is to have a switch, probably the smart switch, so that you can turn it on and off with Rust Plus. But you can very easily turn this into an automatic shutdown using Rust Plus if you want to do this. And all I did here, this is not currently hooked up. We'll go ahead and just hook this up. I'm gonna unhook the SAM site there, and over here I've got a timer. I've got this set to 10 seconds just for this tutorial, but you would want to set this timer to whatever you want the delay to be. So if you want 30 seconds of downtime while you take off and land, put it to 30 seconds, whatever you want, however long it's going to take you to land. And it's very simple to build. I just have a branch. It's going to stay in its default configuration, so we're going to set the total rust watts that we need down there. So the branch out's going to run to the timer, and this does have to be in this order. The branch out has to go to the timer. It has 1 to power it, 1 to pass, and then the output of that timer is going going to go to the block pass through on this blocker here. The power out of this timer is going to run to the power in on the blocker, and the blocker's output actually is just going to run straight to the SAM site. So I'm just going to run that over to here like so. There we go. So that is the power out to the SAM site right there. And then the power in is just simply all we're going to, well, I guess actually before we do that, I'm going to hook this up here. We can do this in blue. The switch, the smart switch is going to run over to the timer. So you're going to run that into the side of the timer right there, to the toggle on of the timer. And that's all you have to do down there. And then over here, I'm just going to hook these up, daisy chain this on. I just set this up so I'd be ready for this tutorial. So I'm gonna run this into here. I'm gonna set this one to 2. It doesn't really matter, I don't need that anymore. And so this timer, or this branch here has 30 coming out of the branch out, and then the power out is unused. So you're gonna send 30 rust spots down here. So it was 26, 27, if you recall earlier. So it's not that much more to add this. And it already started because I just plugged it in. So once it's ready, what you would do is, presumably using your Rust Plus app, you would toggle this on, and it's going to turn the timer on for the allotted time, which is going to shut down the SAM site by blocking the blocker. And so as soon as this runs out of its timer, it's going to turn this back on. And so the thing you'll notice is that it doesn't matter if you leave the smart switch on. So this actually is a safer way to do it than just using the smart switch, because in this way, every time you toggle that to on, it's going to shut it down for the allotted time, but you can't forget to turn them back on. So this is actually a viable way, and quite frankly, a very, very simple way. If you're looking to do that, you would just adjust your amount of time off. Usually 30 seconds to a minute is what I would imagine most players would need to land and take off. So you just want to make sure that you initiate this before you pull it out, because you'll notice that it did fire on that mini copter before it was even in flight. So you would start this before you left your heli room, heli base, whatever, your garage, and then you would initiate this on again once you were coming back. And so that's it. So that's the simplest way. The next thing we're going to cover is honestly probably not necessary, but I was just so curious if I could make this, if this is what I'm about to show you is essentially that, except that it turns off the smart switch for you, so that whenever you go into your Rust Plus, the smart switch is always off, and when you toggle it on, it'll turn off the smart switch once the timer is finished. It adds a lot of complexity, partially because the smart switch is glitched in that anytime you use the side inputs on the smart switch, it glitches the switch and it stops functioning until you reset the power here. You unhook this and hook it back up. So what I did was created a little power toggle here that interrupts power to this when it's done, so that it does function. So it doesn't really serve a purpose. You can see right now how it doesn't seem to be working. I would have to reset it. So if I were to toggle this to get it going, it's going to reset this for me by running this little interrupter into this XOR switch, so that I can toggle this. And as soon as that is done right there, you'll notice that comes on, now it functions. So the way this works is if I run it, it's going to run for 10 seconds, exactly like the other one did. It's using a delay circuit right here. And when it's done, it's going to shut these 3 off down there. And we'll cover how to build this here in a second. And then it shuts off, but it turns this off. So again, you don't need this. You can just toggle it. I just wanted to see, so if you're not interested in this, you can just skip to the next chapter. But if you're interested in building this, I'm going to put this right here, just wire this up as I have it shown. And then starting from the battery, we have a power out going to this branch here, and then the power out of this branch is not used. The total here is 97 rust watts, so this is a fully loaded battery. And that's because I'm using three SAM sites here. So I just wired this up with 3 just to show you how you can do this. They all have those lights. They're all getting 26 rust watts each from this block here. So this is the input here. So from this point here, we have 97 coming out of the branch out, and it starts in this little power distribution block here. This first branch is set to 10, and because that 10 is what's required for this stuff up here. And then it passes what's left, which is 86. The branch out on the second one is set to 5. It's running to this XOR switch. If this didn't glitch, if this smart switch didn't glitch, you wouldn't need this XOR switch, you wouldn't need the splitter. These are literally here to fix the glitch. It's just the way I figured out around it. And then the output of that same branch, the 80 that's left over, that's running to the power in this blocker. It passes through 79 left to this this splitter, and then you have these divided up into 3. You get 26, 26, and 26. And so that's it for the bottom part there. The output of this XOR switch should have 4 coming out of it. That's going to run to the power to the smart switch. and then its output on the smart switch is going to run to the in power in on this splitter. We're only using 2 of these outputs. I tested a little bit. I don't think it matters which ones you actually use, but one of them is going to go to the toggle on of this timer, and the other one is going to go to the block pass through on this blocker. So then jumping up from the first branch out here, we're going to go up into this from this branch switch to this timer. This is the delay circuit. I've covered this before. And so arriving here, you should have 10. This first branch out has to be set to 4. The remainder of that's going to come into here, and these are just going to be in their defaults. So you're just going to leave these as they are. Should be 2 and 2. This runs to the blocker. The power out runs to the timer over here. This timer is what you set for the delay. So if whatever you want, again, I have this set to 10 seconds just because it's a tutorial video and you don't need to wait that long, but you would set this to 30 seconds, a minute, whatever you need for landing and takeoff. And then its output runs over to the block pass through. That blocker's output runs to the toggle on of this timer. I have this one set to 0.25 because this is being used as a button. It just needs to flick on and off real quick. Its output runs to this splitter up here, of which one of the outputs runs to the switch off on the smart switch, which is what glitches it. You know, as soon as this receives power, this thing stops working, and it always has done that. The other side of this is going to run all the way around to the input on this XOR switch, and this is how this works. So the XOR switch only allows one pass through at a time. So when this thing flicks real quick, it's going to send power to the other side of this, which cuts power to the switch, which is how I got it to fix it. So we can demonstrate that by just turning this on. You would do that with your Rust Plus app. As soon as the timer is, you can see those are off over there. Once the timer is up, it's going to flick real quick that XOR switch in the bottom there and help reset the switch so that it works again. So, and that's all you would have to do there. So this is, again, totally unnecessary. You could just do that over there, but I just wanted to see if it was possible, and that's kind of how it worked out. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about wireless. This is probably the best way to do this. Whenever I have done this in game, this is what I've done. I've always used a wireless system, sometimes paired with maybe a smart switch, but I've always used a wireless system. So we're going to just start here, and I'm just going to start like this is the sort of the base system. It's much simpler. And right off the bat, I'm going to give you a tip here, is that change your frequencies regularly. If I've got a transmitter set to 3500 and I die, it's going to stay that way. So especially if somebody dies, make sure that you change that frequency. But the way this works is we have our battery. From the output of the battery, we're running to this branch just for my power distribution, and I'm setting 61 over. That is for 2 of these. Now, if you want to add a third SAM site, it's very simple. This thing's already built for 3. You just add one here. So you need an additional 26 or 25 or 26 Rust watts to run that off. So you would just add 25 or 26 to that, and you'd be all set. So currently I have 61 running out here. That's running to this little power distribution down here. This first branch, the branch out set to 2, it's default because that's running to this RF receiver, and that's just gonna run into the input. Its output is gonna run up to the toggle on of this timer. This is what sets off the timer to turn these off. Once again, 10 seconds here. Set this to whatever you want your takeoff and landing times to be, so you don't get shot down. The power out of that same branch is going to run to this other branch. Its branch out also remains in its default configuration, and you're going to run that up to the power in of this timer. Its output is going to run to the blocker, and then the power out of this branch switch here is going to run to the power in of this blocker. Its power out is going to run to the splitter here, and if depending on what you've done, you're going to get 1, 2, or 3 coming out of here. I mean, probably 2 or 3 coming out of here. So that's literally it. And so all you have to do is set your frequency to whatever you want. I've chosen 3500, and that's it. So the simplest way to do this would be to make this, and then you just have one of these on your person and you initiate it. It's going to start the timer, which shuts these down for the allotted time that you want. You can also, and I've set this up there, the cool thing about the broadcaster and a button is that the button actually supplies, there it just reset, it supplies its own power. It'll send out 1 Rust watt on its own. So if you were to send this out the broadcaster, it's going to also initiate the system. There's the timer going. These are both off. I'm using these lights. Just all of these lights are all set up off of this pass through because I'm sending the 6, and now they're back on. And that's literally it. This is like probably the easiest wireless way you can do it. But that said, another thing you can do, and this is what I always do, is I like to set up an HBHF remote shutdown. So what I'll usually do is I'll have that build over there, the wireless build we just covered, and then I'll set one of these up on a tower on a cliff somewhere, maybe a 2x1, maybe some sort of little box or whatever, something somewhere. It's very, very simple. It's one solar panel. It's a car battery. You run the solar panel to the car battery. The car battery's output here is going to run to an HBHF sensor, and then its output is going to run to this broadcaster who's set to the frequency. And all it is that. And what I set it to is exclude authorized, include others. It's very important that it be include others, so because you don't want it going off on other people. If you mess this up, other players can shut down your air defense. So make sure it says exclude authorized, include others. And that's what happens here. It already shut off. I'll back up again so it doesn't detect me. And once I get into range of the HBHF sensor, it's going to trigger right there. They went off. That timer is running. And it'll just keep doing that. So what I would do is I would set this on a roof somewhere, I make a tower, and I'm in my mini copter, I would literally simply just fly by just like this, and it would shut it off. I'd come in, land, and you're good to go. So depending on how far away this tower is, this is another reason to change your code frequently. Maybe put a bag here, bag in, change it frequently. Make sure it doesn't get rated. You know, this is kind of a weak point depending on what you do. You just have to make sure that maybe the TC is sealed off and, you know, good for the whole wipe so that no one's going to take it. You just got to make sure you protect this, but this is a cool way if you set it up right to do that. Other than that, I mean, one of the only last tips that I would say is don't use the pass-through to power another SAM site unless they're right next to each other. Because if someone destroys one SAM site, they kick off everything below it. So in this case, you know, it really is, I think, safer to just run independent power like this, and it's not that big of a deal to run independent power to the SAM sites. So that, folks, is just about all I've got. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below. Otherwise, you can get me on my Discord. See you later.